accompanying in psychological wounds. It has been spoken, unfortunately, a lot in the last 25 years about sexual abuse in minors, but now this field of abuse has been made wider, speaking about abuse of conscience, about abuse of power, spiritual abuse, psychological abuse. We will have a talk about spiritual and psychological abuse. But then also it has been expanded, the concept of abuse of minors to abuse of vulnerable people. And the cause of vulnerability is mainly some kind of asymmetry. People can be old, over 18 or 20 years old, but a formator, even of young people who are adults, young adults, have also some kind of moral authority on them that can make that some of their decisions or what he says can be also abusive. And then from a negative point of view, abuse can be not only active for doing something, but also can be negative when there is neglection or the people do not receive the care that they need. So let us begin by saying what I mean by psychological wound. We can consider that as an emotional damage which is caused by actions or omissions by someone from whom respect, care, or affection was expected. As every definition, it is very wide, and it helps us also to see that the focus of this talk is not only how I can help people who suffered from, for example, sexual abuse, but also people who suffer from neglection in their parents, by their parents, or who suffered from bullying in the school, or who suffer inside the institution to which they belonged. Because those actions or omissions affect the people in a harder way depending on what was expected from them. We expect respect from everybody. So if somebody does not respect me, it produces in me a wound. But I expect also from care from some people, professors, mentors, and so if they fail, the wound is worse. And I expect affection from the people of my family and from my friends. So if that abuse by action or by omission is committed from somebody who is a member of my family, who is somebody in which I trusted, and so obviously it will be a deeper wound than it is made only by a colleague in the work of a schoolmate. So how can we help those people in our task of mentoring or spiritual direction? We can begin by welcoming the person who speaks to us about some kind of abuse of any kind. First of all, give credibility. I think this has been one of the best initial pitfalls in how the crisis of abuses has been faced in the church, saying the famous too big to fall. It is impossible that this person has been abusive because I know him, he's a good Christian, because he's a person of success, because he's a priest, because he's whoever. So it is impossible. So I don't give you credibility, and if someone comes to me saying, I have suffered from this person, and you say it is impossible, thank you very much, conversation finished. you don't understand me, and it is possible that she will say, nobody understands me. So you have to be open to the possibility that it is true, independently of how hard is the situation or how high is the person. Meanwhile, as you listen, you can also do yourself your questions. But first, let the people to speak. Then when she has told you, ask yourself or herself, is there a risk of recurrence? It is possible that this abuse can continue in the time because it will change a lot what I'm going to say. It is not the same if I say, okay, I'm going to think what we are going to do. Go back to your house, to your ambient, and then she's going to be suffering at all. Obviously, there is a sense of urgency if the people is going to be hard still. What can we offer the person? We can, in the people who are here, obviously it would be different if I was speaking to mental health professionals. We as mentors, as spiritual directors, can propose a path of spiritual accompaniment. That's all what we can do. It will help them not only from a spiritual point of view, but also from a human point of view. But please don't act as psychologists, because you are not. And perhaps someone of you is, in this case, she can do, but as a psychologist, not as a mentor. It is important to distinguish the environments in which they are speaking. And you can be more or less trained. I will speak about some bibliography at the end, but put in your position. These cases can be very complex, and it is very easy to overact or to commit errors because most of the things are of common sense, but there are things that are not against common sense, but are a little more complex than you can only see from your good common sense, from your common sense side. Then choose a good environment to speak to those people. It is very difficult to open general my soul, or also for a normal spiritual direction, when the environment is noisy, when you are receiving phone calls, when your cell phone is sounding with notifications. One more reason to cancel the notifications. When it is too open, when we are too exposed to the view of the other people, and then we enter into the concept of privacy. Nowadays, to speak in mentoring or mainly with minors and also with people of the other sex, it is important not to do that with the door absolutely closed, locked, and without any glass. But some people have gone to the other extreme and has gone to such a transparency that you are all the time as if you were in the middle of the garden, with everybody looking at you. It is not a good environment that protects first the privacy, but also the feelings that can appear in that conversation. Because a person that has suffered will obviously be a little moody, there will be have affection, she will cry, she will get angry. And so if you are in front of everybody passing through the corridor, it won't help her. So it is better to have a glass that consents to be seen, but not completely, so as to have some privacy at least. Then ask him or her if he or he wants to denounce. If there has been something that can be also a crime, and distinguish that has been a second error that has been committed in the crisis of the abuses by discharge. Not everything is only a sin. There are things that are also crimes, and crimes have to be punished and have to be denounced. But unless the person is a child that cannot have the possibility of giving her or him opinion, if he's even an adolescent, it is better to be her who puts the denounce. You can also tell her, do you want to do that? I will help you. I will accompany you. I will tell you how to do that. But go slower also, because the person who chooses to denounce gets herself in out of problems. So she had to be ready to do that. Obviously, you have also to protect yourself. And in some cases, it is better to say her, putting written, write me, even a WhatsApp, saying, don't denounce me. If you don't want to denounce, give me written, because in some cases, I have the obligation. I don't want that you change your mind in 10 years and you say, I told it to my mentor, and my mentor didn't do anything.
Actually, in the US, I think we're forced to write a report, even if it's the adult.
Even for adults?
Yeah.
Okay, it depends on the countries. Okay, anyway, protect also yourself. Accomplish the rules, know the rules of both of your country and the institution, the school, the university, and so, and then decide.
I don't know if you at one point can talk about, when it comes to the church, how you would denounce, because it's not very clear to me how that works, and I don't know. I think that's important.
Right. In every diocese, there should be an office for denounces. For every diocese, an institution in the church.
Yeah, and what you could do is, you're required to report in the US, in every diocese. You could ask the spiritual director. There's a hotline on the website. You can ask and he can walk you through it.
So, but then I guess the next step is, because this is what I've been asked recently. So you denounce. What's the process after?
He can walk you through it. It's all in the website.
It's on the website. Okay.
Yeah, but but this case you are speaking if it is a case that has been committed inside the institution.
Yes, but also for the diocese.
Okay.
So even though it's a different process, he can help you through that.
Yeah.
Like the spiritual director.
You mean like our spiritual director? Yeah.
Okay. So, then caution with physical contact with these people. Now we are speaking about in general, but sometimes we will descend to people who suffered physical abuse. Obviously, the relationship with their own body is hard also. And then they can have some kind of fear to be touched or to be, so you have to be very affectionate, but also prudent. And how much I have to be next to her or have to take the distances. Look at her and at her face. If you check the hand and you say that she's tense, if you touch her back to say, come on, and she gets tense, then it means that it is better not to touch. Here in the United States, you are much more sensitive with physical contact than we in Spain and in Italy. Ask yourself, does she need a specialist? Is she working well because of his mood, because of her activities? Can she concentrate? Can she focus? Can she work? Or the opposite, she's so anguished that she cannot have a normal life. In that case, she might need a specialist. And here is one of the key questions. I ask it in advance. How can I ask a person when I have a suspicion that she has suffered abuse? A person that seems too closed, too shy, that refuses all kind of physical contact, that has strange reactions, or that has too many worries about sexual issues. A small girl that seems to have too much about sex, or a boy that is very invasive, body invasive with other people. So, or a person who, even as an adult, you think that something that is not working well in the way he manages her affections, the relationships, and so. So when I was working in the hospital, it was frequent, unfortunately, and I had to make my own answer for that, which is like this. Has anybody done you any damage during your life? Anybody doing any damage to you in any moment of your life? The answer that we should answer is yes. Not too many people, but some people. But when I say that, I say it with naturalness. The person who receives that question and has that wound, probably something will awake in her. And if you see at her face, probably you will realize that the question was right, something happened. Perhaps she will say no, nothing. But the very fact that she say no, nothing means that something can happen. Don't force, don't insist, let time pass, or just say, okay, if at any point you remember something and you want to speak, I will be here. What are the wounds that have to be healed in these persons? The deepest one is I am unworthy. I don't deserve care. I am dirty. I have lost my dignity. I am fragile. The world is dangerous. And so I have to protect myself in different ways. By hiding myself, a kind of ghost in the classroom that don't speak, that do not participate in anything, or something who do not establish close relationships, or who establish relationships that are very superficial and does not share her privacy, her intimacy, or people who has to beg for affection, or has to leave her hands in someone else's hands. Or like Napoleon, who said that the best defense is a good attack. So people who are very violent, but they are violent, they are aggressive, so that nobody can attack me again.
Sorry, can you go back? I must hide my privacy?
Yes, I cannot speak about my intimacy. Yeah, but perhaps instead of privacy, intimacy. So, how to help from the spiritual direction? First of all, the first motto is victim first. And that is another failure of the management of the crisis of abuses in the church. The thing to protect is not the institution, it's the victim. And when you put your main efforts to protect the image of the institution, necessarily you will put in a second place the victim, and she will suffer because of that. You have to believe that. It is not a technique. It is not only because it must sing like I am doing that. No, you have to believe that. Otherwise, it doesn't work. Then, primum non nocere, like it is a famous motto in medicine. The first thing is not to harm the people, which means not to repeat harmful relationship. These people tendenциally will try to protect themselves or to repeat the toxic relationship that they had with the abuser. You can find both things. So in any case, about re-victimization, which means that apart from having suffered, now I make you guilty because you didn't, why didn't you speak earlier? That is re-victimization. Why didn't you protect yourself? Why didn't you say no? Then the person closes, obviously, herself. Unconditional acceptance. Independently of what you did and what you suffered, I accept you and I like you. She has to acknowledge that in front of herself that there has been an injury. And it is difficult for, firstly, for minors, because for a minor, the father or the mentor or the professor or the priest is the person with authority, is the person that must be right. And so there must be done an effort by her first to say, yes, there has been an injury, there has been an injustice, and also repositioning guilt. And the guilt, the guilty is him. It is not me. Even if perhaps I might have protected me better. For some people, even it can be better to close their eyes to the abuse than to acknowledge that the person that seemed to love me has abused me. I prefer to be her princess than her doll. It can be painful, mainly for a person with self-esteem, so that enter in a vicious cycle. I keep loving the person, admiring the person, and then I let her to abuse me. So she had to say, it is not fair, it is unjust, he's guilty, so I cut, even if it will mean for me to be set apart. Yeah.
It's not clear to me what you're saying the person who is spiritual director should be doing with repositioning guilt. They should not, they should. I'm not really...
Yes, she had to reposition the guilt, because there is a lot of sense of guilt in the person that suffered abuses. Because I didn't speak at time, because okay, then you have to let emotions to flow in order to master them. In the first step, there will be a lot of emotions that can be pain, that can be sadness, that can be aggressivity, and they must flow. And you have to let them flow. And you cannot say, hey, you are crying too much, or you are, hey, don't speak so hard of those persons. Let them flow. And then you will be able to manage, to challenge, to help them. But in the first moments, she has to let. I will speak after about a book of Edith Eger, a survivor of Auschwitz, and she said that she had a pillow in her room because she, a survivor of Auschwitz, she realized that she had a gift with patients that had psychological wounds. And then one of the ways that she helped is that when the patient became very anxious, she asked him, do you want the pillow? Yes, please. then she used the pillow like a boxing bag to discharge. This person who has suffered silently so long need a kind of catharsis by crying, by aggressivity, by sport, and so. Then we arrive a little more to the positive and to the rebuild ideas, recovering a sense of their own dignity. Take care of yourself. Invest time and money on yourself. Put yourself pretty. Buy a nice dress. Put your hair in such a way that do not hide your face. Or put your clothes in such a way that they do not hide your shape, little by little. But the first thing that helps to recover the dignity is you are worthy to spend time and money on yourself. Integrating the wound into one's biography. I have spoken about how this Edith Eger realized that her talent of helping people to recover was thanks to her suffering in Auschwitz, when she realized her life changed because my suffering had a sense. I have already had different experiences with people who lose one of the parents because he died, because he left the house, and then the cases were with girls. The older girl had to do the mother of the younger brothers. So she left, she lost the adolescence, and she became a mother too early because she lost at the first day. There were more than one. They lose at the very same moment the father who passed away or left, and the mother who had to go to work very hard during all day. So they grew their siblings, and then they found their vocations. Vocation to celibacy, vocation to serve the other people, and they were very talented to take care of the other people, at the point that they received a lot of requests of caring. So she was the one that listened to the problems, she was the one available to accompany to the doctor, she was the one that spent time with the other people, till something broke. By the age of 25, 35, more or less, because they got burned out. Everybody is asking from me, and nobody is asking me if I need something. Where was it? And then this was the work with them, because you have become a mother of them. That is your talent, and you are very happy because of that, and you are very proud of yourself, and it is legitimate that you become proud of you. But do anybody take care of the mother? The mother is the one who cares, but a child does not say, "Mom, you look very tired. Please sit down and I will prepare the dinner, or I will clean the dish." So you have entered into that dynamic when you have lost your adolescence. And so there is something that you have to regain. You have to take care of yourself, otherwise you will be overloaded by taking care of the other people. One of these people was a nun, a religious woman, and then I tell her, you have to say no to the request of the people, of your sisters in community, of the people that you attend. When you are tired, or when you don't like something, or when you think that it is not your duty, it is other people's duty, say no. And she told me, it was very nice because she told me, but Father, I am a religious woman. I have devoted all my life to the others. I have to empty myself to serve the other people. And the answer was yes, but now you are empty. And if you are empty, you cannot give anything to the other people. You are getting exhausted. So take a break, take a few months or even years to reconfigure your relationship with yourself and with the other people. And after that, you will be able to serve the people and do it joyfully and happily and without feeling that you are losing something. And this is very important in vocation. People who the better they live their vocation, the more exhausted they become. The more I give myself, the more I do apostolate, the more I serve the other people, the more I feel bad. Why? Because there is a lack of human basements. And we arrive again to the idea of the perfectionist people. If you only take advantage of the voluntarist, perfectionist, and the will of living well the vocation of that person, you only encourage that, pray more, abandon yourself in the Lord, and take a break every week for a walk and so, and you don't go to the basement, that person will be in danger of breaking. And this is very a pity when you see that such a very nice person breaks, and when you hear this story, you say, it was not so difficult to foresee. That person had such a difficult infancy or adolescence that there was a great hole, a great problem in the basement, and the building was condemned to fall unless foundations, unless some people take care of her and do the work of rebuilding those foundations.
Just to restate something you said, when you were saying, like, with somebody, with the better they live their vocation, the more exhausted they become, you were saying, like, beware of that, or like, what, like, watch out.
Yes. Be aware when somebody is living well her vocation and she's not happy and she's getting burned out and she's anxious or resentful, even with the institution. And easily, when she gets resentful with the directors and then the institution and then also the church and also God. So she can even lose the faith. Those are the institutional wounds that also exist. She has to do an effort to overcome the role of victim. We can find many people who suffered, and they are right. They have suffered. There has been an injustice, and they insist, no, I am a survivor of abuses. How can I help her to go forward in her life and not to get stopped in the role of survivor of abusers? In these cases, I will recommend her, you are not only a survivor of abuses. You have to make a life that integrates the fact that you suffered, but is richer and wider than that. But obviously, it is victimizing to say, hey, you are too insisting that you suffer from abuses. Please speak about another thing. Then you have lost all her trust. She has to overcome the fear and distrust in relationships. If you remember when we spoke about identity, we said sharing intimacy, making friends, need that you become vulnerable, that you are strong enough to make you vulnerable and to risk to trust the other people. So it should be a vicious cycle. She has no trust in herself, she doesn't trust the other people, and so she needs to protect herself. You can do it step by step. Say, choose whose people you can trust and speak and feel free to tell them stop, to tell them I need some distances. And little by little, you will learn what are the boundaries, the limits that you have to put to the people. You have to heal the image of God, mainly if those kinds of abuses, both spiritual or physical, has been committed by someone who represented God, the institution, a priest. So to say, God is not that like that abuser. He has betrayed God. You have to foster proactivity. Many people, when they find a mentor, a spiritual director that understands and listens to her, they put their lives in their hands. And that is what I said at the beginning, primo non nocere. Don't accept that. Say, I'm going to accompany you and I am going to help you to recover your dignity and to help you to take your own decisions. Otherwise, it doesn't work. And I can act as a net for your force for a certain time, but as soon as possible, you have to take your decisions, you have to take your own responsibilities, you have to risk your life. And finally, we have the problem of forgiveness. Forgiveness can be also re-victimizing because the person can say, has suffered and I cannot forgive. I listen every year, more than once, people who come to the confessional and say, Father, I accuse myself that I have not forgiven. What are you doing here in the confessional? Because if you are confessing that you have not forgiven, it means that you want to forgive, and probably that you have forgiven. So what is the problem? The problem is that they don't understand that forgiveness, this is the famous reconciliation between Jodie Foster and his famous father, John Boyd. It was very nice because there was a biographical wound in Jodie Foster because of a father who has not been nice. Angelina Jolie, in fact, not Jodie Foster, Angelina Jolie. So forgiveness does not mean forgetting. I can have the idea that comes and make me suffer, and I have forgiven. Even it can be a kind of human industry to say, the more it comes to my mind, the more I forgive. And so you can be still, and don't worry if it comes one time and another. Not, yeah, so I finish in 1 minute. It does not mean denying that the other did something wrong. It does not mean that as I have forgiven, I have to restart the relationship. It does not mean to renounce to justice. You can forgive and you can denounce. And it does not mean that for the fact that you have forgiven, you have regained your serenity. Instead, forgiveness means to understand the other in her context, how much he suffered, how weak he was, how difficult was her biography. Forgiveness means assuming that the other, that you also did something wrong, that you took wrong choices, accept the ambivalent thoughts. I liked him in a way, but I don't like him in another way. He loved me, but he abused me. Accept that I have to be vulnerable and decide if I want to give him or her another chance without reproaches, and always pray for him or her. It is a way of beginning a new relationship that can be at a distance without meeting. Perhaps the person has already died, but it is something that helps to see the situation in a supernatural way. Finally, some books that can be read with great advantage. Viktor Frankl, The Man of Search for Meaning. Boris Cyrulnik, who is the one who has made popular the word resilience. Then we speak about yesterday Dale Carnegie and how to win friends and influence people, so as to learn how I can relate with other people, and a book that I have spoken, that of Edith Eger, The Choice, the history of her life and how she she recovered the sense of her dignity and a task for her life, accepting her own wounds. This last one is only available in Spanish, Más allá de tus heridas, acompañamiento y sanación, by José Manuel Domínguez Prieto. It is a psychologist, he writes for psychologists, but it is the more balanced book for people who devote themselves to help other people and need some training specifically, because it is not very high level for psychologists. It is a little high level for people who devote to mentoring, and it can be a help, and it does not focus on people who suffer from physical abuse, but most of the samples that he gives is people who comes from broken families or from broken marriages. So it can be also very useful. So we can finish. We don't have time for questions, but we will have still 2 more days.